Life is filled with so many lessons. And for an empath, each lesson that we integrate, is a type of key for our expansion on the planet and for our soul work. Life becomes easier when we're able to integrate well. Of course, some lessons are harder to learn than others, but it's so very important that with each experience, whether we consider it wonderful or very challenging, that we, take a step back as empaths and look at what we've learned and allow ourselves to grow and integrate and expand. So an evolved empath has done so much work on themselves that they do this integration process easily or easier than they used to. Whether that's through meditation or moments of silence or spending time in nature, checking out for a while, going off grid, going into the cave and hibernating, just to allow a reset and a recalibration after major experiences. The empaths that don't do that tend to go, and give. And as a result, they end up feeling extremely stressed out, fatigued, and even burned out. An evolved empath practices wonderful self-care, puts themselves first, loves themselves, honors themselves, respects themselves, and accepts themselves, and realizes that in order to continue to show up and do their light work, soul work, heart work, with excellence, that requires that they keep themselves strong, healthy, whole, healed. Practicing radical self-care is not an option for an empath that wants to reach their highest potential and live in the highest light available. Now, for the empaths that haven't learned to practice the radical self-care yet, there's often an experience of fatigue, and they take on too much, quite frankly. They overload themselves with responsibilities. They show up for anyone and everyone, and they give, and it is from the heart. It truly is coming from a good place, but they're lacking boundaries. And because they equate honoring the higher self, the universe, God, creator, source, with giving to the point of exhaustion, they're completely out of balance. And in this imbalance creates a space for an extreme burnout, overwhelm, and burnout. Once an empath becomes so depleted that they're at the point of burnout, something really interesting happens. They move into crisis mode or survival mode. And in survival mode, you can't show up for others even if you want to. You can't even hardly show up for yourself. But because it's a crisis and you're in survival mode, you realize that you have to put yourself first. So in this space, the fatigued, exhausted, overloaded, overwhelmed, burned out empath will begin scrambling to, repair what's broken. But because it's survival mode, it's really a bit dysfunctional. And so what that looks like is not returning phone calls, not responding to people, not saying please and thank you, just doing what you need to do to take care of yourself, which is a good thing, right? We want to come back into balance if we've been imbalanced. But this is the difference between the overwhelmed, exhausted, burned out, depleted empath and the one that has been practicing really healthy self-care all along. The empath that's practicing the healthy self-care is going to be able to continue to recognize not only their own love language, but the love language of others. So they, if someone does something for you or shows up for you or gives you a compliment or compliments your post or wants to take you out for lunch or something like that, it's not exhausting. And you can say yes or no, but you can respond to them in a healthy way without feeling overwhelmed, because you honor yourself and you know what you need and you know what's good for your soul, and you know whether hanging out with someone is going to be what you need right now or whether you need to practice self-care. But whatever the case is right for you, you respond graciously and according to what serves your highest good, and the other party is still respected and the relationship is intact. When you're overwhelmed and depleted and scrambling to finally practice some kind of self-care and give back, you can come off as very selfish and self-absorbed and insensitive, because instead of responding to others and the outside world, you become reactive and defensive and abrasive. And it's all the result of being burned out and overwhelmed. Let's say, for example, you're a person who has always put others first above you. And you've done that to the point where your body is suffering, your mind is suffering, everything in your world is crumbling apart. You're having a major tower moment. And so you're in this space of crisis mode, and you are in survival, and so you're using survival instincts. And let's say that you get the bright idea that you're going to just go on a cruise for 2 months. You're going to shut the world out. You're not going to work. You're not going to respond to emails. You're not going to take on any responsibilities. You're just going to take a cruise for 2 months around the world so that you can relax and recalibrate. And while in your burned out state, that sounds like a great idea. You welcome that. You can't wait. So let's say that you just take off. You leave your house for 2 months. You don't pay the mortgage. You don't tell significant others that you're leaving. Let's say you had a roommate or a spouse. You don't say anything. You just leave. You just take off. You go away. And I'm exaggerating, obviously, but you go away for 2 months. Even if you get the respite that you were hoping to achieve in that 2-month break, when you come back, you may not even have a house because you neglected to pay the bills. You may not have a spouse. They may have left you. You may not, your roommates may have wondered what was happening, or maybe they moved someone else in because you didn't communicate. You didn't say anything. Your pet didn't do well. You didn't get somebody to take care of the pet. The pet may have died. Again, of course, I'm exaggerating. You may have overgrowth of grass and weeds because you just left abruptly. And obviously nobody would do anything like that unless there was an emergency, right? I remember many years ago, my friend, I was living in the valley, and my friend messaged me and said she said her father had passed away, and she said, I have to go to Europe for, at least a month, maybe more. Can you watch my house? I'm leaving tonight. I had to tell her yes immediately, and then because I could do it. And she left that night, and I drove to her house, which was considerably far away from mine, and took care of her house for a month and a half. And fortunately, I was in a position to be able to do that. She was in crisis mode. The point is, when we're in crisis mode, we have to think very quickly. We make decisions very rashly, and we're in survival mode. We're in crisis mode. We have to repair something, and oftentimes we're reactive. And the others in our lives may recognize and be able to, support us, or they may not. If you went on that cruise for 2 months and came back, even though you may be feeling great, you may have no healthy relationships. You may not have a job. You may not have a house. You may not have things to come back to. So before we get to the point where we are so depleted, exhausted, and burned out, empaths, it's so very important that we practice radical self-care now, that we take time, as they say, to smell the roses, that we take time just for ourselves, sometimes turn off the cell phone and the devices, sometimes just be in nature all day, sometimes be away from humans, sometimes just be alone and go to the mountains or the oceans. we talk about it, right? We talk about it all the time, but sometimes we are not really actually practicing what we preach. And then we burn ourselves out. And then in scramble mode, survival mode, we're trying to set all these boundaries and we become reactive. Maybe we isolate. Maybe we cut relationships off. When you're desperate and in survival mode, you don't care, right? You don't give a flying you know what about what anybody else thinks or wants or needs, or, they could just say hi and you're like, shut up. Because you're so overwhelmed and so depleted and so burned out. So beautiful, divine empaths. We are part of a collective that is super important to this planet's healing and ascension. We must take radical, beautiful, proper care of ourselves so that we don't get to the point where we burn out. It's really, really important. Honor yourself, love yourself, take care of you, pour back into you, nurture yourself with really good food and water and rest and sounds that are pleasing. Stay away from drama. I've said this so many times, but if it doesn't pertain to you, if it's none of your business, if it's some celebrity scandal or some spiritual leader scandal, if it's not your personal affair, if you are not personally affected, your health, your finances, your well-being is not directly affected by this other person's actions, stay out of it if you can, so that you don't contaminate your psyche and your energy field, and so that you don't hijack your strength and your well-being. We have to protect our energy. We have to protect our heart space and our mind field and everything that comes into our energy field and our nervous system. We have to keep our nervous system calm so we don't jump into fight or flight, which is that survival mode, that desperation mode. Let's do everything that we can to love ourselves, to honor ourselves. I just invite everyone who's listening right now to take a nice deep breath. Relax your shoulders down away from the ears. Inhaling in through the nose. Exhaling through the nose. Let your breath be diaphragmatic, which means that on the inhale, the stomach is expanding. And on the exhale, the stomach gently contracts backwards. In through the nose and out through the mouth, dropping the shoulders further, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the brow, noticing if there's any tension in your neck or spine or shoulders or lower back, hips, knees, calves, ankles, feet. Just find the areas where there's heaviness or tension or density. Just breathe and in through the nose, out through the mouth, really sighing out, relaxing if you can, calming the body, relaxing the mind. Again, in through the nose, out through the mouth, sighing out. One more if that feels really nice to you. Releasing all that you can. And in this space, reset your brain, calm your nervous system, relax the body, recalibrate your energy, and love yourself more.